Running fans, jumping fans, throwing fans, all around athletics fans. Welcome to Talking in Ovals. I am Alex Cuesta. Partner in crime over there is Dave Hyatt. What's going on, my brother?
Just trying to recover here. Been in bed the past 3 days with the dreaded COVID, but I feel like I'm starting to get on the mend. And, what's better than getting the call the night before that? You don't have work tomorrow because school's canceled. So shout out to Manasquan. Thank you very much.
I don't know who's happier now that I'm an adult. Like as a kid, I was
Teachers.
always like, we didn't want school. And the teachers are definitely happier than the kids when there is no school.
It depends on if you're coaching and you got stuff planned for that time and you're like,
Yeah.
I didn't need a snow day tomorrow. So it's, I'm not coaching now. So it's it's cool.
Yeah, definitely. So, for those keeping score, like Hyatt said, he's been on the mend for 3 days. We're recording today, Thursday, January 18th, 2024, for episode 71. Before we get into all the fun stuff, like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5-star Spotify and iTunes, and spread this word of mouth. And find us on the socials at Talking in Ovals. So, last week, though, we had a really, really, really fun show. One that
Was fun.
I'm happy we were able to pull it off because it was a really good time. It was a task, but we had on Westfield cross country team and they're 19th place nationally at Nike XC Nationals. So it was a blast talking to them. We were sans one of their varsity guys, but what do we have? 8 people plus ourselves. So 9 of us, I think overall, I think.
Yeah, we had the
I can do math. I can't do math.
Coach Tafelsky and the other coach.
Yeah, it was a great time. Those boys, those Westfield boys are incredible. You can see why, they won, and we're going to talk about them in a couple of seconds actually, because
to me, I think it all boils down to the fact that Chris Tafelsky and I were college roommates, so all of my positive vibes are going off on.
Well, we have the streak. Anyone that we've talked to has done really well with coaching, with running and everything. Anyone that's come on this show. So if you want a PR, if you want to go win that championship that's been eluding you, come on Talking in Ovals. That is the word. So, but Hyatt,
right?
Like I mentioned with Westfield, we finally have some PRs for the year. And it comes from our good buddies at Westfield. It comes from Coach Tafelsky over at the Union County Championships. I'm going to run down these real quick. Peter Del Rey ran a 6.75 in the 55 and a 22.95 in the 200 to set some PRs there. I'm going to butcher this name. Emmanuel Gallanilo, I hope I did it right, ran a 49.27 in a 4x4. Rowan McMahill ran a 50.92 in the 4x4. Charlie Vanacek long jumped 20 feet and a quarter inch. And then Noah Rubenstein threw the shot 46 feet and 2.5 inches. So PRs for all of them. Awesome.
They also had
a great time because
Avery Keith won the 32 in 9:16, and Taj Mehta, his teammate, was second in 9:29.
And they ended up winning
9:25. I'm sorry.
And we should mention they ended up winning.
So, and I also want to give a shout out for hot off the presses tonight at the Ocean County meet. Tom's River North boys and girls winning handily. Great job to the Mariners, my mom's old teaching stomping ground. So congratulations to Noel and the staff there.
I mean, I guess it's okay. It's Tom's River. It's all
I know.
right.
Listen, I'm a South guy, so I know.
Go Manchester. Anyway, so this week we are sticking it with Shore Conference. We're staying in there because we have another fantastic guest, someone who was the coach of another one of our really fun guests that we had. He is Todd Briggs. He is the head coach of the Freehold Township High School girls cross country and track and field teams. What's going on, Coach?
Hey, how's it going? I get this a lot. It's Briggs. I get
Briggs.
I get variations of it. Most of the time, people want to reflect back to the 1980s sitcom days and call me Todd Bridges.
Bridges.
Yeah.
So. What you talking about, Willis?
Yeah. I get that a lot.
Briggs.
No, yeah, it is.
I knew it was Briggs. What are you saying, Alex? Messing this whole thing up for us.
I don't know these.
You're messing this whole thing up. It's Briggs.
I do.
It's always been Briggs.
Listen, do you think I pay attention? I barely paid attention while I was in the races. You think I pay attention to anything else?
I did.
I know you do. You see, maybe you should be doing the intro, so when you mess up names, I can make fun of you.
But I like to be in the background, so the fact that you didn't get my name right makes me happy. So,
so Coach,
as any good coach says,
I will not mess that up again, Coach Briggs.
No worries at all.
I want to jump in right away. Now, you have a unique path to running. You weren't a runner in high school and college, which a lot of our guests and a lot of our coaches were. Tell us about what you did in high school and college, when you got into running, and also when you got into coaching and why.
Okay, so I went to Freehold Township High School where I coach, which is fun. Graduated in 1998. I played soccer was my primary sport. I played all 4 years of soccer. I was a 3-year varsity letter winner, captain my senior year, all that fun stuff. Played baseball for 3 years. My senior year, I was stopped by the track and field coach in the hallway, and he was talking to me about my plans for the spring. Was I going to do baseball again? I actually was thinking about not doing baseball again, and he spoke to me a little bit, and that helped kind of push me in the direction of trying track. Because he mentioned how he watched my soccer games, and he could see that I can run and I can get up and in the field. So it might not be a bad idea if I was thinking about not doing baseball to come out for a track. So I did. So my first foray into competitive running was my senior year of high school for track and field at the school that I currently am the head coach of. And I was a sprinter for some reason. 100, 200, long jump, terrible. Varsity by name only, not in actual competitiveness. And
isn't it funny when you look back as a coach and you're just like, if Coach me could have grabbed young me, I would have put myself in X event.
See, it was so obvious. It was so obvious I was a mid-distance runner.
I would have guessed a 4.8. A lot of your soccer athletes who go into the track and field they do end up usually 4.8. Sometimes you'll get some 16.32s but usually not if it's their first year. Senior year, I kind of understand more now why I guess they probably didn't think you had any kind of base or anything.
So from there, I went to Montclair State University. I played soccer there for a year. I went off to Montclair State thinking it was going to be an extension of high school, and that I was going to walk into campus and they were going to be throwing flowers at my feet, and couldn't wait to have me there. And I quickly realized that I was just another guy in college. I wasn't that great.
Very different when it's a bunch of grown ass men and you're not a grown man anymore. Like 18-year-old, you're the grown man there. You get to college and it's like, I'm a little boy again. These are 20-year-olds, 20-year-olds. It's very different.
They had, even though it's Division III and Jack in New Jersey, they had at the time, their best player was from Ghana. Their second best player was from Poland. They had a guy who was about 36 years old from Ireland who still had eligibility. I'm not exaggerating. And then I walked in and I was terrible in comparison to them. So I did it for a year. I'm not a quitter. So I wouldn't say I quit because I stuck it out for the year, the season. And, coming back to school, it just wasn't going to work. The spring of my freshman year, I told our coach that I wasn't going to come back to soccer. I remained in the school for another year until I figured out what I wanted to do next. And I moved on to Rutgers for my final 2 years of my undergraduate degree. And wasn't an athlete, competing athlete.
You were probably at Rutgers when I was there.
Yeah, I was gonna say you graduated in '98, so he was Ian's year, right? Because Ian graduated in '98. So was that
Ian Hahn? Yeah,
it's a year behind you.
No, I was '96, but I was at Rutgers till 2000.
Okay.
Yeah. So my first year at Rutgers. Yeah.
It's so big that you wouldn't know anyway. So
the guy that was causing problems and debauchery, that was Dave.
That was me. Yeah. I'm like, I think I saw you on the F bus.
Yeah. That's funny. So I was just a student, and I graduated from there. And as we do in college, picked up some bad health related habits, and kind of ballooned a little bit up in terms of my weight from where I was in high school and my early years in college, and got really out of shape, and graduated from Rutgers, got a full-time job working in my town in Freehold for the town government, the recreation department, actually. And got to a point where I looked myself in the mirror and I said it was time to make a change. So the beauty of our sport is you don't need equipment. You literally don't even need shoes, and just ask anyone in anywhere else around the world besides the Western countries. You don't even need shoes to do this. So you don't need equipment. It's not expensive, and you don't need a team, and you don't need a coach. Now, at a certain point, you're going to need a coach, an advisor, but in the beginnings, you don't need to just step outside and just go run in your neighborhood. You don't need anything except the will and desire to do it. So my fitness level, where I was in high school to where I was as a 21, 22-year-old, it wasn't acceptable to me at some point, and I decided to make a change, and running was going to be the way I was going to make that change. So that's kind of how I got into it, a half mile at a time, and then it became a mile, and then it became 2, then it became 5, and then it became marathons. So
that's awesome. And so did you ever decide to go and do like the men's leagues and stuff like that in soccer when you got out of there? Or was it kind of one of those things where you fell out of love a little with it, like after, like, what was your relationship with soccer?
Yeah, I was so burnt out with the soccer scene. When you're a kid, it's more so now, but even back in the 80s and 90s, when you're a kid, you're running around every day to a practice for your club or your rec team, and a game for your rec or your club team, and your school team. When you get to middle school, then you're on 3 teams. Same thing when you get to high school. It's like, and then I get to college. It's like, oh, I'm really not that good. What did I spend all this time doing this for? And I was kind of just like, that was it.
You would try to tell kids, I know this is a running show, and like, if you're a runner, it's different, right? You want to stay committed. You want to do 3 seasons, but man, if you're an athlete in any other sport, be a 3-sport athlete. Don't just dedicate. You get so much more skill in your sport if you're doing other sports. I know specializing is a thing, like basketball, baseball, soccer are very big in that. Be a 3-sport athlete. Like, it's just better that way. And always incorporate track. Because track's But so you get into running. Go ahead, Dave.
No, I was gonna say, so at that point you're out of college, and you are teaching at Freehold Township?
No, I was working for the recreation department in Freehold Township for my first couple of years out of my undergraduate degree, and then I realized I wanted to be more. I wanted to be more working with kids in sports than behind the scenes, kind of organizing the leagues, and coaching was the avenue for that. So I went back to school for my graduate degree from Monmouth University.
Nice.
And I realized if I was going to be a coach, I was going to have to be a teacher. And I went and I got my master's degree in secondary education from Monmouth University. And while I was doing that, I was working at the recreation department and moonlighting as the JV soccer coach at my alma mater where I played.
Nice.
So
how does one get into track and field from there? I mean, because obviously now you're very well known as cross country and track and field. So many people might not even know that that's not part of your past.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool because you're kind of taking a different approach than some of the other coaches that we've had on who, this is what they've done for their whole life. So the natural progression would be, well, I'm done running now. Let me get into teaching and coaching. But you were coaching JV soccer. So how does that whole process take place?
So it comes full circle. The story I started telling you about the high school coach that talked to me my senior year in the hallway about doing track and field. Well, he was still the coach of track and field for the boys at Freehold Township High School when I came back to be the JV coach for soccer. And he saw me coaching JV soccer, and he stopped me one day after practice. He said, "Hey, I have an opening as an assistant coach in my program for track. Why don't you come back to the program that you were once in and be a part of it?" And of course, I jumped at that opportunity because it opened the door to me work not only in a sport that I'm passionate about, but my aim and my focus was to work with kids and help younger kids and younger adults achieve their dreams. So I jumped at that opportunity, and that's how we got the ball rolling there.
So as a person who doesn't have the background per se in the sport, track, because track is very expansive. There's so many different events and different ways to go about it. How does one get to the point where they feel like they are giving the athletes everything that they need and that they become competent in that sport? Because there are a lot of coaches out there, certainly not you, who kind of just coach because it's a nice little stipend that they might get. So what did you have to do to dedicate yourself to make sure that you were able to give the athletes the absolute best coaching that they can get?
Right. So I think a lot of people will look at my background in coaching and the sport and say, hey, that's a detriment to him as a coach and to his athletes, the fact that he doesn't have this extensive running background, whether it be coaching or competing when he was in high school and college. I see it as an advantage, and I see it as one of my greater strengths as a coach, which is I'm not locked into this philosophy that I learned when I was 14, 15 years old as a freshman in high school that an old school coach kind of beat into my head as the right way of doing things. Yep. I had to learn the right way for me, what were the right way of doing things for me, what worked for me. So I think my coaching style is much more authentic and it's much more personal. So I have a deeper attachment and passion for it because I learned it through experience on my own and not from some Bible handed down from me from a coach when I was 14 or 15 years old.
And I see that. I love that. And I love that too. And it's like one of my best coaches and favorite coaches was an All-American wrestler at West Virginia, Tom Scheffler. Scheffler was amazing, and I had some of my most success as a runner under him, and he didn't have that same background. So I think it does because you guys, unlike Dave and I, who were in it this whole time, you guys have that outside perspective. So like you said, you can kind of pick and choose what you believe in. Now, did you use a lot of did you go and seek out advice from other coaches and kind of pick a little bit here and there as you were a young and new coach?
So I'm very observant. I think it comes from being the youngest of three children. And you kind of watch your older siblings and your parents, like you're in the house the longest, right? As the youngest, Yep. It feels like at least. And you see your oldest siblings go through life ahead of you and you anticipate what's coming next and you observe them and what worked for them and what didn't work for them. And it's the same thing for me with my coaching style is I watched coaches like my coach, Coach Golub, who was the head coach that recruited me back into coaching high school track. I watched him as an assistant coach. And then I was so fortunate that I came into the Shore Conference, right? And in particular, Monmouth County, because I'm going to meets as a 22-year-old who knows nothing about track and field. And I'm watching, people like Jim Schlentz and Tom Heath and, and on and on. I could go on forever on both the men's and women's side.
There's so many great coaches in Mount County. You have Coach D. Philippus at RBC. There's so many great coaches.
Yeah. So it was great because, we were getting our butts kicked, but I was observing so many things, and stealing or taking or adapting or modifying things that I saw other coaches do, whether it be race day, meet day behavior or tactics, or whether it be just picking their brain, hanging on the fence between races. Hey, what do you do with here? What do you do there? And not stealing in the sense of copying it, right? But taking the information and kind of adapting it to what I think would work best for our situation at Freehold Township at the time, and for me as a coach, because every situation is different. And you can't just say, in my opinion, you can't just say, this is the way, right? Like they say in Star Wars, this is the way, the Mandalorian. But there is no the way. In this sport, there's more than one way to skin a cat, and I learned my way. And that's kind of the story.
Yeah. See, I would say it's definitely an advantage in some ways, but I would think too nowadays, if you don't have that prior knowledge, you have to really watch because there's so many things out there online or from other people that, it's so hard to find so much weight, all the different information to do it. So kudos to you for finding what worked for you. So how does a person get from, I assume when you first started, you were a volunteer or an assistant coach. And then now how does that turn into head coach for all 3 seasons?
Yeah.
The head winter coach was a man named Dan Shine, who's still coaching. He actually came back to coaching after retiring at Freehold Township High School, and he's coaching at Wall High School a little bit in the spring now. And he's a great man and someone I look up to and a tremendous coach. And Brian Golub, who just recently retired last year from Freehold Township High School, who was a longtime basketball and track coach and cross country coach. Where was I going with this? They basically they gave me the opportunity to ascend to this position because they saw later in their coaching careers, here's this younger person who's deeply passionate about it and concerned about the development of the athletes and concerned about, quote unquote, doing it the right way. And without asking them, I think that was part of the process in their minds. Now that I'm older in my coaching career and I'm thinking about when the end of the line is and handing it off to the next person, I think what they saw was all the years of hard work they put in, looking for the person to hand it off to that they could trust would do it the right way. And I think I showed them that. Maybe not in my knowledge of the sport, certainly, but in my care, my passion, exactly.
The willingness to learn.
Yeah, we've talked to a few of the older coaches in the state or people who have coached in the past, and it's a big deal to make sure that you're turning your program, because track and cross country sport where people are there sometimes 30, 40 years. Mm-hmm. So you get this huge attachment to your school and to your community and your team, and it's hard to stop because you want to make sure that next person has that same drive and is going to give the same effort towards the athletes and the whole school culture that you have helped create.
Yeah, and I experienced that as I was the head boys varsity head coach after I was the assistant coach for 10 years at Freehold Township. And I experienced that feeling when it was time for me to go and move on to my next adventure, which was girls cross country. And I didn't want to go until I knew there was that next person in place in line that could, quote unquote, do it the right way or the way that I felt I wanted it to continue. And that was a great coach named Josh Mail, who's now the athletic director at Freehold Borough High School, who's a good friend of mine. And he went on to win numerous state and short conference championships in my place. And that was really great to see.
And I think it's interesting that, you talked about being the younger coach and kind of picking the older coaches' brains, because as grumpy as we know they all get, right? Because most of your older track and field coaches, after dealing with kids for so long, they get grumpy and they want it done their way. But I think when they see someone, not just somebody young, but somebody young that is hungry for the right reasons, they don't mind giving a little grunt and giving you the right direction, right? Like if they know that you're there for the right reason, they know you're there for the kids and you want to make your program better, they don't mind giving you a little bit of information. It's not that much inside baseball, but it's like, this is what I did, kid. Maybe you could take it. And I feel like now as you're, I wouldn't say you're advanced, you're not an old man yet, but as you're, a more veteran coach, you're probably the same way where like there's some guys you'll be like, I'm not telling you anything. And then there's others, it's like, hey, come here. I saw you do this, maybe, try this. Like, without stepping on toes, just as the veteran. So I think that's kind of
and there's
fun at that transition.
There's a ton of pressure too, because you know how much that other coach put into this team, and now you are taking over for them. We've had on like we mentioned earlier, Coach Tofelski from Westfield, who took over for his old coach, or Sean McCaffrey, who we had on, who took over for his old coach. So I'm sure that in lies a whole nother level of pressure if you ran for that program, which you did your senior. So I just want to talk about quick. There's a little different of a dynamic, possibly maybe not as much now since I haven't been coaching a couple of years, but definitely from a small school and a large school. And you're in a larger school. So do you just coach the girls at all times? Because I know in some smaller schools there's a lot of, like you coach distance, boys and girls. So like, do you solely just coach the girls? Do you have any interaction with the boys? Or are you just kind of like, this is my program, the girls team?
So it's changed and transitioned over the years. So when I started, I was assistant, volunteer assistant, yada yada. But I was also the head soccer coach, and then I was the assistant. I was the assistant track coach for the boys only. In the spring, I wasn't coaching cross country, and in the winter, I was the assistant. Our school district combines boys and girls onto one coaching staff in the winter.
Right.
So I was the assistant, and then I was that for a year or two, and then I was promoted to the head, and I was the assistant for 3 or 4 years in the spring for the boys, and I was promoted to the head, right? And then I wanted to make a switch when I had my final child, when my wife had our final child, and it was our third girl, and we knew we were no longer having children after that. I was like, thank you. I was like, oh,
we're
boy.
all girl dads here.
Yeah, I have two. He has
Alex
two.
has
You
two.
have three.
Yeah. So I was like, I better get to coaching girls and having that experience and being ready for that. So all the teenage girls that I coached before my daughters became teenagers were all kind of learning lessons for me and how to handle teenage girls.
I coach girls track, and my daughter is now 13. She's going to be 14 in about 2 weeks, and I feel so much more prepared having done that for a few years because you're around that age group.
Yeah. So I've kind of bounced around between being the boys head coach, being the girls head coach, being the boys soccer coach, being the girls cross country coach. And it's just kind of been, the timing was when that head coach was ready to move on, and then I was ready to slide in. So that was really the best way I can explain it.
And that's to be nice now, like knowing like this is my gig for as long as, hopefully as long as you want it for, and you can just kind of focus on that.
It's been a revolving door of coaches, head and assistants in my 17, 18 years. And now it's like the one permanent thing over the years now has been me, right? Coaches have come and gone, athletes have graduated, but now you go back 17 years all the way to today, and the coaches, the athletes can get together and they can talk about Briggs.
Yeah,
and there's a commonality there.
And that
is your program, and
your program. Yeah,
I have seen them. Like you could tell that you have a great rapport with their athletes. Social media. I've seen videos of them like dress up like Coach Briggs Day, where they all wear sweatpants.
Halloween, yeah.
And the backpack. So that's cool. You've definitely built a super solid program, and it shows. So I want to get into a little bit about this year, or maybe I guess maybe it started a few years ago. Yep. What was it like having a team to win the Group 4 state championship in the cross country?
All right. Well, I got to take that in 2 years because it was a different feeling each year. So Correct. In 2022, it was an unexpected thing. No one expected it. It was a little out of the blue, other than everyone knew Emma, but it was a little out of the blue that our team would be that good. So a group of girls beneath Emma on our team just made a jump at the same time as her. And that led to our success. So 2022 was a totally different experience than 2023, because 2023 was built on expectation, whereas 2022 was built on the fun of doing it.
Right. And
so, in a quick question, which one
I was going to ask that,
are you more proud of in a way? Are you more proud of the shock, or are you more proud of these girls with targets on their backs, stepping up to the line, knowing it and performing? Which one?
I think target's harder, man.
Harder, but which one do you take more with more pride as a coach?
Well,
it's the same. They're both.
It's tough because it's like
got to put them on the spot, Hyatt.
They're both good for state championships. It's awesome.
The easy answer would be like, oh, you always remember your first, but I'm not going to say that. I would say my answer is this year. I didn't cry. I didn't cry as a result of the team's success or individual success of Emma, whatever you want to say, until groups of 2023. So this past November, I kind of let it all out, because from the end, so from Media Champions in 2022 until groups of 2023, there was expectation, heavy expectation. Oh, yeah. And everywhere we went, whether it was track or cross country, it was there's big bad Freehold Township. I didn't feel that way about us. I just thought still we were this up and coming developing program. but that's what others in my head, that's what others said. So there was this growing sense of pressure that I was putting on myself. Maybe the media was putting on me and the team as well to do it again and to prove it. So I would say proving it again was probably more satisfying.
Nice. I mean, listen, to win a Group 4 title, to place, what you guys,
Typical.
6 at a MOC?
6, yeah.
And that's, there's so many coaches who have coached, 30, 40 years who have never gotten to that level. So congrats. I want to ask you a little bit about Emma.
She's amazing, by the way.
Yeah. What a great
Such
kid.
a great guest. So well put together.
Yes.
Had her on here, just, so well-spoken, on her way
better than we are.
Colorado. Oh,
better on the show than we were.
But did you know as a freshman, because she had some hype from, running at a younger age, that she was going to be what she is? And what has it been like? Because, as a coach, you might never get a talent like this ever again. I mean, it's just a reality of what it is. So what has she been like to coach? And how much has her work ethic been a impression on the other kids so that to help drag them along and, to make it part of this championship team?
Gotcha. I might need you to repeat some of that, but I'll start at the beginning with your first question, which I remember. When did I know? So my oldest daughter, Sophia, is a junior. So she's a year behind Emma in our school on her team. And they've been long friends since before high school because Emma was attending AAU meets, USATF meets, in cross and indoor and outdoor, from an earlier age before even middle school. And I had my daughter doing that as well. So they would kind of be at meets at the same time. And I remember one specific meet at the Armory. It was an indoor meet when they were much younger, and they ran in the same event, and didn't go so well for my daughter in comparison that day. And Emma kind of almost, I believe she tripled or quadruple lapped the field for her age group in 1500. And I kind of knew of her, obviously, because I was coaching her oldest brother, Zach, at that time, and would also go on to coach her brother Tyler. So there was kind of a succession of Zawadzkis that came through, and Zach was a really talented runner in high school that gets overlooked. Short conference champion in the 3200, and still runs at Baylor University, and was extremely successful at Freehold Township. So obviously I knew she had talent in the family, in the genes, and then watching her run, I remember at that one particular meet, the Armory, was just like, what is this person? And then I just assumed all along, and I've told her this, that she's not going to Freehold Township. We don't get people like that at Freehold Township.
Ask you that, yeah.
Those are the types of people that go to the real schools, the real competitive schools, not Freehold Township.
Well, no, I mean, I was actually, going to ask because now, you don't know where kids are going to go, whether it's a private school or, there's many options now. So the fact that you got her to actually stay there is pretty cool. So what has it been like coaching someone that has those expectations, that's expected to not only compete at the state level, but to compete at the national level? I mean, did you feel like you had to do more research and become a better coach because you had someone of her caliber, or did you say, listen, I'm just going to do what I do and I'm confident in myself and we're just going to roll?
It was a feeling out process. I think because of my experience with her brother and the success that I had earlier in my career with female runners, like Kira Roche and Emily Bracker and Janelle Parker and Allison Moskowitz, these big time statistics and the accolades. I think she had an expectation of me as a coach and the level that I was. I had an expectation of her and the level that she was as a runner. But I think it was a feeling out process where I kind of expected that maybe I was going to have to change, you know what I mean, right, as a coach and philosophies. And I felt like she felt that I was going to force her to change from her philosophies and her experiences running. So there was a feeling out process there, especially her freshman year. And, the one thing I learned about her in running with her every day since she was a freshman, is that she is a dreamer, and I mean that in the most positive way. She literally tells me of dreams that she has related to running, and then she goes and she does, and I watch her do them in reality. And I'm dead serious when I say this. I remember her telling me earlier in her career, I think it was maybe her summer of her sophomore year, that we're running in the summer, we're doing summer training. So sometimes we're doing 7 to 10 to 12 miles together at once, and we're literally running side by side, talking the whole way. And she's like, "Oh, Briggs, I had this dream last night. I was at Foot Locker, and Emma Coburn was there." And I was like, "All right, I'm running." I'm like, "Whatever, this girl, And not a year later, there we were in San Diego at Foot Locker. It was called Champs for that one year, but same Foot Locker. Yep. And sure enough, her coach was Emma Coburn. So, this is Emma is a person that has these big dreams, and then they find her, or she finds them one way or another. And I think the way that happens is her support network. And what I've learned in the years is to be comfortable in being a component of the support network and not being the support network in itself. And what I mean by that is, her success is obviously from her individual talent, her God-given talent and ability, her athleticism passed down in her genes, her height, all that stuff, of course. But what sets her apart from other athletes is her drive, and the fact that her support network is so vast and so deep, starting with her parents, who will literally do anything, no expense they won't go through and to make sure that she has the best opportunity to be successful. And her brothers with their tremendous athletic accomplishments and experiences, and even her grandparents, who I've gotten to know on both sides so well from just being at countless, endless meets. And they don't live in New Jersey. They're always there, though. And then she has, physical therapist that she's been working with, and she has a doctor that she's been getting, and a motivational coach, and all these other things. She has this huge support network that you can't tell and you can't see just by watching her run in a race, but it's there. And I'm a component of that. I'm not that in and of myself, and I had to get comfortable with that idea, and I am. Over time, I've become more and more comfortable with that. So what I mean by that is not making decisions in a dictator style, in a dictator fashion. Making decisions where this is a mature person, where I can bounce ideas off her and say, "Well, what do you think?" Yeah. And we can have a give and take and a respectful conversation where we're almost equal parts of the decision-making process, whether it be what meets to attend or what events to do or what the tactics are for that race. And we sometimes disagree, never argue, but sometimes disagree. Yeah. And I will always, and I've told this to many of my athletes, and I've said it to her, where, she's the artist, she's the painter, right? And I'm the art teacher. And the art teacher shouldn't be taking the hand of the artist and helping them draw and paint. They should be saying, "Well, here's styles of paint, here's styles of drawing. What do you want to do with it?" And then be on the side of that and say, "Oh, well, you might want to try this, you might want to try that." So that's kind of been our relationship.
That's awesome. So when you make your coaching plan for the season, say, I don't know, the end of last spring for this fall or whatnot, do you have to have two different plans, like one for Emma and one for everyone else, or does she just really try to ingratiate herself with everyone else, even though she's doing other things? Because that can get really, really tricky if you have someone who's that much better, in a sense, to make them all feel like they're part same team. So how do you encompass all of that?
So when she came out as a freshman, I was like, freshman year cross country, I was like, this is a team, and I'm going to train them as a team. And, I don't care how great she is. Yep. She's a member of the team. She's just another member of the team. And then we had our first meet. It was like a dual meet or a scrimmage on our fictitious home course that I had to create because of COVID, and we weren't allowed to travel. And we raced, And, we were running the boys first and then the girls to kind of separate them a little bit, not only because of COVID, but because of competitiveness. And we go through the first race, and she's catching half the boys, and them having an advantage in a 5K. She's catching them at the finish line. And we have these two stopwatches. We got to figure out which one's the boy watch and which one's the girl watch, because she overlapped so many of the runners, and her times were better that year than all but one of the varsity boy runners. So I was like, okay, I can't take that philosophy that she's just another member of the team.
Because then you're doing her a disservice.
I would be doing her a disservice. And it's not my style to say, this is what our program is, my way or the highway. That's not me. So I opened the door to, like you said, I do have two plans. On my Excel spreadsheet for our schedule, I actually there's tabs at the bottom, right? So there's the tab for the team, and then there's a tab that says Emma's schedule.
Hey, listen, and you have to.
Yeah, it's different. Not only the meets she attends, especially in the track seasons, but her training schedule, it's different.
Yeah. And what was cool when we talked to her was you can clearly see how much that she enjoyed the fact that her teammates were coming along for the ride and that they were winning state championships, and what is it like to be able to coach your daughter to a Group 4 state championship? Like, that has to be really, really cool that your own flesh and blood is on it, because, Emma gets all the attention, rightfully so. She's phenomenal. But, there's 6 other great girls, or one of them being your daughter. How do they feel about all of the success that Emma has? Because she seems to really do her best of ingratiating them into the fact that we are a team, and I'm on this team with you. I might be going to some other meets, but most of the time that'll be after we're done doing our thing or early in the season. But I'm not going to sacrifice our team for something for myself. And that's not an easy thing for someone of her caliber to pull off.
Not at all. She does a great job with it. And, your initial question, what was the experience like as a dad coach? I had 2 daughters on the team this year. So in 22, I had my oldest. This year, I had a freshman and a junior in the top 7. Sometimes Sophia was 5. Sometimes she was 4. Sometimes Natalie was 6. Sometimes she was 5. So they were point scorers on this team, not just like afterthoughts.
Absolutely.
And any experienced cross-country coach would tell you got to have 5. And in fact, you probably want to have 6 or 7 because things happen during the race.
Push those other 5 back, 6 and 7.
Yeah. So I always said, the strength of our team was the fact that we had the lowest point scorer in every race, 1 point, which you can't do better than. But a lot of the teams that we were competing against for the team championships, they had the second point, right? They had the second point scorer. So Emma only gained a point.
Right.
You know what I mean? Whereas my 4th, 5th runner can gain 70 points on a team that we're competing against. So I was super proud of the fact that my daughters were those girls. Were the girls that on teams, the coaches, experienced coaches understand that you probably rely on even more than the star runner when it comes to team scoring. So that was an amazing experience to see, and especially at the group meet where I said I was super emotional, probably the most emotional I've ever been as a coach for soccer or cross or track, not just because we won. But the way in which the team won. So my oldest daughter, Sophia, has this habit of falling in races and in training.
Not the best habit.
No. And she fell up the front hill at Homedale at groups. And they laid fresh stone this fall and summer. So up that front hill. So she got pretty beat up in her knees and her shins, pretty cut up. And she was expected to be our 5 runner, and they have points in each part of the race where I'm standing where they're supposed to be.
Right.
And Sophia wasn't at that point for the first mile. And it was Natalie that was in her point place. And I'm looking at Natalie and I have my hands out like, what? And Natalie looks at me and she's like, Sophia fell. And then Sophia comes by maybe 10, 20 points later. And there's Sophia with a bloodied up knee again. And long story short, one of the biggest factors the team won that race, and it came out, it actually turned out to be a really close result at the end, was when Sophia fell, Natalie took her place, and Sophia didn't want to lose to her younger sister. So it super motivated her to get back to where she needed to be. And she finished exactly where she needed to be. And the team won by, I think, like 13 points or something like that.
So those weren't just tears of winning as a team. Like those were tears of a father too.
Oh yeah. It was, it was partially relief.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was partially relief. Like, thank God we defended this championship. And then secondly, it was the way in which it happened was dreamlike for me. It really was. I mean, people see my 17-year-old daughter, my 14-year-old daughter, and they see 17 and 14-year-olds. I see newborns. You know what I mean? I see babies. So I see my two babies, our two babies, my wife and I, and they're working together to help the greater good of this team and this program that I happen to coach. Yeah, I mean, what an amazing and unique experience for me, and probably the best thing that's ever happened to me in my coaching life.
Yeah, I mean, I would have definitely cried and teared up too. That's awesome. So I wanted to get into before we go quick. You've been coaching for about 17 years, you said, and earlier you mentioned how it's such a simple sport where you don't need all this expensive gear. But I feel like that's kind of been a shift over time, like with all this new like Strava and all these new different kinds of shoes that I feel like everyone feels like I have to have these shoes because they're faster. So have you noticed a change in equipment, and has there been more of an emphasis on that by the athletes as time has evolved?
Yeah, certainly. I've certainly seen a change. When I first started coaching, a GPS watch was foreign. You know what I mean? Like, well, GPS, a runner would show up with a GPS watch.
What's that Garmin watch you got there? Yeah, right.
Those early Garmin boxes,
Yep.
The red and gray boxes. And it was like, what is that? And I remember we actually fundraised to get one. We had one in the program, and we had our best athlete wearing it. And it was like, oh, this is great. We're going to know exactly how far they ran, and we'll be able to map, we'll know where the mile splits are on each of the runs. And
see, it's funny because back, in the 90s when I ran, like that's when the polar heart rate monitors first came out. So we were like, this is the coolest thing ever, our heart rate. But like, we didn't know like where we were going. Like it like there was no GPS component. It just measured your actual heart rate so that you could do different thresholds or fartleks or and try to stay where you're not over exerting yourself. But I feel like now it's just been taken to a whole new level. Like there's something for everything.
Yeah. So talking about the change over time. So when I began, we had that solo Garmin watch, and that was like, wow. Now the technology is so prevalent in the sport, the GPS technology, everyone has one, whether it's an Apple Watch, which I don't trust, or Garmin, preferably for me. And it's evolved to the point where not only do all my runners have a Garmin, but we all follow each other on the Garmin app. So they see my running, I see their running. So there's no like lying unless they attach their watch to their dog or something or somebody else. There's no like getting around. You're not doing the work. Right. And it's beneficial in that it can help you hold each other accountable.
Absolutely.
But it's detrimental. It could be detrimental from comparison standpoint. Someone can look at somebody else. Someone could look at Emma's and be like, I need to be doing that. Like, no, but they're not ready to do that.
Correct.
Or someone could look at mine, or someone could look at even, one of the less experienced runners in our program. And that's where it gets dangerous, and it almost becomes like a nuclear arms race, like during the Cold War. I'm a history teacher, sorry. But so we're building up now where everyone's looking at everyone's Strava or Garmin Connect, and they're like, oh, they're doing that, I got to do this. They're doing that, I got to do this. And that's where it could be, in my opinion, that's where it could be dangerous at the developmental high school level.
So I mean, Strava is the exact same way. Like everybody's always looking at what, well, this person did this workout. I see both sides kind of like you, or I think it can certainly be helpful if it's used correctly, if it's like focused solely on each individual, but there is that gray area where it can get kind of a little overwhelming because everyone's trying to just do what everyone else does. And, also now you have all these forums and this and that. So how much of an emphasis do you think kids put now on these shoes? That's all that you hear about. Like, I got to have these shoes so that I can run fast. When I was young, we just had spikes like that there was nothing really special to them.
I always say, when someone wants to try something new, whether it be apparel or technology or, taking, some kind of supplement, right? I always tell them, if you think it works, then it works, right?
The old placebo effect.
Placebo effect, exactly. That's always my response to them is, well, if you think paying the extra money for those shoes and having to buy them more often than regular spikes from the past is helping you, then it is. So by all means, do it. So I encourage it, because if they believe it, then it is. So I'm okay with that. Now, whether or not it actually is, I mean, if you look at the times around the country, around the world, it seems like it is. I mean, there's other factors in there like nutrition and weight training and the technology and the tracks, especially for the short tracks. But you got to assume the shoes are playing somewhat of a role in that. And you just look at the sub 2 hour marathon, right? And all the exposure from that. And how do
4 miles,
Yeah. How do you believe after that the shoes don't help you? You know what I'm saying?
It can't all be just that everyone's training better. There has to be, but that's like any sport, like there's people who are like, I don't like all these shoes. I'm like, you gotta evolve, man. It's every sport. It just evolves. So what are your guys' plans for these upcoming seasons, winter and spring? Like, you guys trying to qualify for any relay teams? Or are you just trying to go at things as a team? Like, what are your upcoming goals for winter and spring season?
So I used to the previous round of great talent that we had on the girls' side in the 2013, 14, 15 years. I used to say I used to be all about the relays and the team building effect of the relays and the buying in and all that stuff and being there for each other, and kind of similar to cross country. And I have evolved over the time to see that my personal philosophy is that cross country is a team sport and track and field is an individual sport. So I have, in my later years of coaching, I have leaned away from relays and focused more with the track seasons on just attacking PRs for individuals to gain confidence, so that when we roll back around to the summer and they can see statistically they're a different runner, well, they're going to train like a different runner in that following summer, and that's going to make them that much better in cross, and that's going to help the team. So indirectly, making track and field an individual sport actually helps the team in the long run in the fall.
Sure. Because everyone's better as an individual, so they can all put all those forces together as a team. I also want to having someone like Emma, I'm going to ask you something now. I don't know if it's controversial or not, but like, what has your opinion been? And if you don't want to answer it, that's fine. The way that the NJSIA has scheduled these meet of champs the past couple of years. If you don't want to talk about it, fine. I completely get it. I mean, we've had our things on here where we just wish that they didn't have that week over Memorial Day anymore, where everything was just kind of back on schedule, so it didn't interfere with anything. I didn't know if you had an opinion on that at all. If you don't, I completely understand. It's just something that's come up in years past that's kind of bothered us, that we're kind of not letting these kids kind of go and get their full potential at that national level because of scheduling problems. But so if you don't want to say anything, you don't have to. It's completely, your call. But having someone like Emma, do you have to plan different meets because of someone of her caliber? Like, she will be going to separate meets, obviously, than some of the other girls on team. How does that work in terms of keeping everyone together? Or is everyone like, hey, that's Emma, we love her, she's just going out and doing her thing?
I think everyone gets it at this point, that, a lot of these extra or different meets that she goes to, she's being invited. I mean, the meet directors are reaching out to me. They're reaching out to her on Instagram, whatever, and they're saying, "Hey, we want you to come to this meet and look at this great talent we're going to have and the field that we're going to have in these events and run fast and all that stuff." So I think the team understands that it's just different, right? Kind of like the training I was telling you about before. Like, it's just different. There's an Emma plan and there's the rest of the team plan. And that's not a shot at the rest of the team.
Absolutely not.
Dealing with the reality of the situation, right?
Coach does that, yeah.
Yeah, so, as far as my feelings about the NJSIAA scheduling, I think personally the NJSIAA should schedule their meets. And if people don't want to come to them, then they don't want to come to them. And if they have a priority with another meet over their meets, I don't see how that's the NJSIAA's concern, in my opinion. People have to make, if you want to call them sacrifices, like, oh no, I have to go to Brooks PR instead of Meet of Champions. Like, come on. Like, that's not a real sacrifice. You know what I'm saying? It's a choice. It's right. A choice. And I think the individual athlete, coach, program, in whatever situation they're in, they're going to make the decision for them, which one is the right choice for them in that moment. I personally don't think the NJSIAA should be beholden to the plans of these national meets. That's how I feel, or these special invitationals like Brooks PR. I think they should set their schedule for what's best for their state, for what's the most efficient for them. And then the schools and individuals can make their own decisions.
So I guess the only issue that I have is that it was working so well for so long, and then it just changed. I guess that's the only issue that I have. Like,
yeah,
that everything was fine. It was a non-issue, and then now all of a sudden, pushing everything back, did that. But I definitely see your point. Like, as a state, you shouldn't have to worry about that. But I also see the other coaches who are like, but you're making us choose when we don't have to. So I see both sides of it. Thank you for your honest, candid answer on that. We definitely.
And we're gonna
have tough choices in the spring. That's for sure. And
we are not against anybody here. We're just trying to figure out where the best. Because someone like Emma, like last year, she had to run both, and it was a really quick turnaround. Like, that's not always fair to the athlete of that level either. So
I'm going to get a little conspiratorial with this, though, because we've seen New Jersey wanting to knock out kind of big state championship events. They did it in basketball, and their whole thing is, well, evening up the playing field, right? There's no reason a group 4 and a group 1 should go at it, and that's fine. But they were trying to mess with it with Meet of Champions in cross country. And this, in a way, kind of seems a little too convenient, right? With what they've been trying to do. Like, oh, now we're pushing it back. And look now, the meet level is lower because we're not getting the best athletes to come here. So it just seems a little bit too on the nose with what New Jersey athletics, high school athletics has been trying to do overall. And I think that's partially my biggest issue. If it was something where, like Dave said, the schedule was the same, and all of a sudden here comes Brooks PR going a week earlier. And now it's kind of, okay, that sucks, but, we didn't do anything wrong. In this way, like Dave said, there was really no reason for them to push it back. I know they gave one, but I don't like
the officials. I guess they couldn't get them to work over holiday weekend, but that's the other issue. We need more people to become officials.
That's kind of my conspiratorial take. Is it's easy to have, I guess, with what's been going on, but it's a little too on the nose with them. Like, hey, now we pushed it back, and oh boy, maybe we should get rid of mocks because our top athletes aren't coming. It's like it kind of sucks for the athletes and for coaches like yourself.
The one thing I would say about that is, now maybe it was I don't know, like a conspiracy theory. You could say this was a fake effort. I don't know. But it seemed like a real effort to me. After this spring season, they looked at this and they actually put it out there. They put a new schedule out there where we would actually have sectionals the weekend before Memorial Day.
Right.
Then we would skip Memorial Day weekend and come back to groups. Sorry. Uh-oh. You guys there?
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
I'm
we're good.
going to plug my phone as I'm going to travel. Come back to groups the weekend after Memorial Day, and then the Wednesday after that
Right.
would be mock, which
And
would
then you
give
have
us
10
which would
days,
then give
right?
us 10 days to nationals.
Yeah.
Which was perfect. They put it out there. We saw it. It was in emails and talked about, and for whatever reason, it was thought that we weren't going to do it for this year. From what I heard, now I don't know how factual this is. From what I heard, a group of athletic directors or athletic directors representing a region or a conference of our state said that that change would be taking away from meets that they had scheduled.
I know. Like
okay.
for here, that would be the short conference.
For here, it would be. Now, I'm not saying
which no one goes to anyway anymore.
Yeah, I'm not saying it was a short conference ADs, but I'm saying locally, it would be the short conference meet.
Right, which has become a meet. Unfortunately, when I was young, everyone. Now it's like they meet that coaches skip anyway.
So, at least to me, it seemed like they showed over the summer an effort to resolve this, and they got some pushback. Now, whether that's, again, if you want to say conspiracy theory, that wasn't real. I have no reason to believe that. It does sound to me like something that would happen where the athletic directors push back and conferences push back.
That is very believable that the ADs got together because, again, they all have different interests, right? Every side has different interests, and the ADs aren't only going to go and represent track and field.
Let's be honest. I mean, I'll say it, I don't care. Track's usually not the highest sport on the totem pole, when it comes to things. If they're gonna track, baseball, all right, track, like you're gonna get the sacrifice. But that's just kind of how it is.
How it is, how the cookie crumbles.
Yep.
It's interesting you say that because they talk about sometimes limiting our sports because of equity, right? So they'll be like, we're going to give out less medals because this is the amount of medals we give out in wrestling, or we don't even give out medals in soccer and football. So they'll be like, we're doing that. We're cutting back on medals for equity reasons.
It's just such a different sport, though. That's the thing. It's
but then they won't use equity to treat us like wrestling, right?
Nope.
Like our meet of champions should then, if their meet of champions is in Atlantic City at Boardwalk Hall, right? And it's this big deal, and they have a stage for the awards, and it's
a national level meet that the results matter. The AC New Jersey Championship matters. So
then why isn't our meet of champions at Rutgers, Princeton, or wherever you want to say? And why don't we have a stage, a podium to give out the awards and that kind of thing? So it is interesting how they use equity sometimes to
when
push
it's convenient. Yeah. So, and it is, and that's kind of the way it's always been, though, right? Because even before this push, track has never been treated the same. Baseball is the big spring sport. Basketball is the big winter sport. It's football, like fall, it's football and soccer. It's like whatever's going on big there, and then, but the things that put New Jersey on the map, wrestling is certainly one of them. But it's track and field. We're one of the best track and field states every year. You put our best up against every other state's best. You're having a competitive meet. So, it is tedious. And I could imagine that that's something that definitely, pisses you out sometimes on the conference calls, pisses you off. Sometimes on the conference call, listening to some things with all that. So I can't imagine, maybe you're not into conspiracy, but certainly with some of the things they actually do kind of makes you angry.
Of course. I understand that for sure.
But Coach, this has been an absolute privilege. It's an honor. It's just great seeing someone who doesn't have that background in the sport rise up and become so successful and have such a great program. And I know that you mentioned earlier that you're not sure how much longer that you have left, but I hope for Freehold Township's case that you stay as long as you want, because you have definitely put that whole program on the map. Well,
thank you. Thank you for saying so, and for having me and all that stuff. And I just want to, if I can, one more thing.
Yeah.
You asked me, just because it's an unanswered question from before, you had a string of questions you were asking me.
Sure.
And one of them at the end was about what it's like to coach Emma and what it means, right? to have her in the program and to have someone like that. And I just thought it was fair to her and respectful to everything that she's done for our school and our program and put us on the map, to answer that question. And I would just answer it by saying, when your best athlete is the hardest working and the most committed and dedicated, it just makes coaching easier, right? Because I just point a finger and say, well, she's doing it. You know what I mean? And what could an athlete on my team or a parent of an athlete on my team, what could they say to counter that, right?
Yeah.
So we're doing 7 a.m. runs all summer, Monday through Saturday at various parks around the state. And she's the first person there, and she's running the longest and the fastest. So how can anyone else say I can't do it or have a complaint, right? And then also couple that with the fact that I'm also doing it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I always say I wouldn't make them do something that I personally wouldn't do. And now I have my kids doing it. I can literally say, well, my daughter's doing it. You know what I mean? But it all starts with, well, look, Emma's doing it. So it must be okay. It must be the right thing to do, right? So it just has made and makes coaching that much easier, not only because it leads to more success, but also because when it's go time and it's time to sacrifice, well, she's out front sacrificing first. You know what I mean? So it's easy. It's easy to get the buy-in after that.
Yeah, that culture definitely helps build when your best athlete fully buys into your program, because a lot of the times too, and you probably experience this, if athletes start to get down, they don't come to you first. They talk amongst each other.
Oh, yeah.
And it starts like a mini mutiny before it ever gets to you. But when your lead athlete's bought in, she's doing the right thing. She's constantly like, no, let's go. Coach said to do this. Let's get it done. That certainly helps. So that's awesome. And definitely 100% could get those vibes from Emma that she's just an absolute hard worker when she was on here. So fantastic having you on. Now, I want to give you a chance to talk about the youth program that you coach in the spring, summer, and fall 4 to 13-year-olds. What is that? If you want to give that a plug and a shout out.
Yeah, and thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
So for a number of years now, I think my oldest daughter might have been 8 when I started doing this. We always talk about equity in sports, right? At the state level. Well, there's a lack of equity in sports at the local level as well, where, every town has recreation soccer and basketball and Little League baseball and Pop Warner football and softball. But how many towns have a recreation track program and cross country? So I wanted to, and remember, I had that connection to the recreation department at a college, and my boss, Suma Golf, still runs our recreation department here.
Awesome.
So I went to her when my daughter was old enough. I said, I want to do this. I want to start a recreation program. We do 10 weeks consecutively, 2 sessions a week, 3 seasons, not the winter, obviously. And we meet with them for an hour and each session, break them into age groups from 4 years old all the way up to 13 years old. And we show them the ropes, the real basics. Don't get me wrong. This is not advanced, but it's the real basics, so that when they come into middle school and they come into high school, they have some familiarity with the sport. They have some passion for the sport. They know what their PRs are. They have goals to chase. And what's really cool is, because we're 4 to 13 years old, parents tell me they just love it because they can have their youngest child on the same quote unquote team as their oldest child. And it's the only sport you can do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it really has been amazing. And I had my 3 kids all come through it. My youngest is in 6th grade, so she'll be finishing up in the next year or 2. And I also run a 2-week cross-country program leading up to the beginning of middle school cross-country for middle schoolers, 6th to 8th graders, at the local park here that we train at the high school. So I've been doing that for a number of years as well. And that's helped the program, the high school program, because there's a number of runners in my top 7, obviously starting with my daughters, but there's others in the top 7, in the top 10, and that have come through that program through the years, and they've had Coach Briggs, and they're familiar with me and my expectations. So that's been a great experience for them and for myself. It's been equally mutually beneficial.
And that's awesome. So how can parents sign their kids up? Do they go through Freehold Town Rec? And for the middle school one, is there a name to go to, a website? How can they sign their kids up to do this?
So the middle school cross country camp is called Revolution Running, right? Because of the Real Patriots. So we use a Patriot logo.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a Freehold Township resident, and that's through the Freehold Township Recreation website. And also the recreation program, the youth, the track program is, you don't have to be a resident, and that's through the Freehold Township Recreation program. You sign up online. You can also go into the recreation office and sign up in person, but it's just very easily done online. The advertisement's online on that website, and that's it. It's all through the internet.
That's fantastic. Thank you for giving up so much of your time, because that's a sacrifice. That's a lot to give up your time to do all that, but it's great what you're doing for the sport outside of being a great high school coach, giving back to the youth. Like you said, there isn't these big pipelines, and, there's attempts. There's a lot of great coaches trying to reach out to the youth, but I mean, man, we need a Pop Warner, right? We need we need a governing body.
Every other sport has it.
You know what?
Every other sport has it.
Go and exploit us, right? Because that's what they all do. They exploit us for money. But man, please start exploiting our sport for money, because then maybe it'll lead to a pipeline and make people some real money and get some, recognition. So let's go. Someone with the deep pocket, please. Hyatt, go get rich and make Hyatt's running running program.
Sure.
There you go. Make it a national thing.
I'll get right on that.
So, once again, Coach Briggs, thank you so much for coming on. He is Todd Briggs, head coach of the Freehold Township High School girls cross country and track and field teams. Obviously, he does a lot for the sport, and even better, he wasn't a runner when he was younger. He came in,
and he was not the star of Different Strokes. He's not Todd Bridges.
No, he's not Todd Bridges. Sorry, my pronunciation is incredible. But anyway, Dave, do you have anything else to say before we jump out of here?
This has been awesome. Just another rock star coach from this wonderful state that we have here in Jersey. Whether you're from the Show Conference or anywhere else, I mean, this state is filled with a plethora of amazing coaches, and we're
coming after you. Yeah, you will be on the show. If you're a great New Jersey coach, we're coming after you.
I love it. But when we started this is exactly what we wanted, was to give a voice to all these wonderful coaches and these great athletes, whether from New Jersey, from the national scene, from the world scene. It's just been an absolute honor to have on all of our guests, and Coach Briggs is the latest one to bring such incredible knowledge, and it's just fun every week.
Absolutely. So once again, we're talking in ovals. You like what you heard? Like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars, Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth. Go find us on the socials at Talking in Ovals. And once again, send us your PR. Coach Briggs, we're going to be coming after you now. You said that track seasons for PRs, so let's go. We want to hear them. So when your girls are setting them indoor and outdoor, I expect Dave to get a text there popping up like, hey, so-and-so, this meet, these people got PRs, put them on.
We will give them a shout out just like we do everyone else, because everyone deserves to get their name heard, whether it's breaking 7 minutes in the mile, or if you're someone like Emma who's running on the national stage. Doesn't matter. It's an all-inclusive sport, and we want everyone to.
We all feel the same pain. If you run 100%, the pain's the same. That's all it is. All right, so everyone, we really appreciate you listening. We'll be back next week. So long, everybody.